announcement in February by longtime Congressman Brian Higgins to trade the halls of Capitol Hill for the helm of Shays Buffalo set off a series of political dominoes across the 26th district. Voters this year will cast a ballot for the full congressional term in November's general election.
But the rest of Higgins' current term will be decided 6 days from tonight, when voters choose either Democrat State Senator Tim Kennedy or Republican West Seneca Town Supervisor Gary Dickson. The 26th district covers most of Niagara and Erie counties, stretching from the Lake Ontario shoreline in the north to Lackawanna in the south. The addition of West Seneca to the district this year allows its supervisor to run for the seat.
Dickson was last year re-elected to his second term as town leader. He's a veteran of the U.S. Army and spent close to 3 decades with the FBI, investigating financial corruption and fraud.
Kennedy is a South Buffalo native who served in the state Senate since 2011. He's chairman of the Senate's Transportation and State Native American Relations Committees and a member on 8 others. Early voting for this race is currently underway and goes until Sunday.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for News 4's special election debate for New York's 26th congressional district. I'm Dave Graber.
And I'm Marley Tuskus. Over the next 30 minutes, we will be asking the candidates the questions you need to know before casting your vote in 6 days.
First, we'll go over the rules for tonight's debate. There will be no opening statements. The candidates will have 30 seconds for closing statements. The candidates will also have 60 seconds to answer their questions and then 30 seconds for follow-ups and rebuttals. At the sound of this bell, your time is up. Our first topic tonight is immigration. We drew names to determine the order tonight. So, Mr. Dickson, we begin with you. Republicans and Democrats agree on very little these days, but neither side disagrees with the fact that America's immigration system is broken. Donald Trump says he will move on day one to close the border and expel people in this country illegally. Mr. Dickson, is this the right approach?
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Welcome, Tim. Immigration is indeed a very difficult problem. The president has all the authority that he needs right now to make a substantial impact on the number of people crossing into the border. He just chooses not to do it. We need to operate under the first principle that anybody who comes into the country needs to come into the country legally. Crossing the border is an illegal act, and we need the resources to stop it. If the president says he is doing all that he can to keep people from coming in illegally in the border, and then comes to Congress, I will support additional resources for them, especially resources to make sure that all cases are adjudicated quickly and that people, if their case is denied for asylum, that they are returned quickly to their home countries.
All right, Mr. Kennedy, now to you. By contrast, this crisis has worsened under the Biden administration. There are more than 500 asylum seekers right here in our local communities at this point. How will you work to change the tide on the Hill and help support communities like your own left to shoulder the responsibility?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm honored to be here with WIVB for this important conversation. I want to thank my opponent for joining here tonight. And I think right out of the gate, you see a difference. You know, we have a bipartisan bill that's been negotiated by the United States Senate that is waiting action in the House of Representatives. But because of the dysfunction and chaos that is reigning under the control of the Republican leadership that my opponent wants to be a part of, they won't even read the bill before they say it's dead on arrival. The bottom line is there is a solution. It has been made in a bipartisan fashion by the United States Senate. It will secure the border. It will ensure that we are investing in our U.S. Border Patrol at the border that's protecting us. And it will also make sure that those seeking asylum that qualify are acclimated into society as expeditiously as possible.
Mr. Dickson, because he referenced you, you have 30 seconds to rebut if you so choose.
The president has all the authority that he needs to fix this problem. In addition, our local communities, including in my opponent's district, are suffering. They were promised that they would not have to pay for these immigrants. That promise has not been correct. And even in the latest state budget, there is no money to help our school districts, such as Maryvale, who have significant costs.
Mr. Kennedy, a follow-up. When it comes to the cost of moving migrants across New York State, of course, local districts have come under the gun and have had to shoulder that financial responsibility. Is there anything that Congress could do, if elected, that you would do at the Hill to make them whole?
Yeah, absolutely. Pass the bipartisan negotiated bill from the United States Senate. Secure the borders. Invest into the Border Patrol that's protecting us. Make sure that those that qualify for asylum are able to get reacclimated. Invest into our communities that are helping these asylum seekers get acclimated and get them to work as quickly as possible. This is a nation of immigrants. We need to treat these asylum seekers as such.
Gentlemen, we now move on to the economy. Mr. Kennedy, we'll start with you on this question. The U.S. economy is improving with months of record job creation and a strong stock market, but inflation continues to soar, and interest rates and the cost of living remain exorbitant. What initiatives do you support to help ease the burden on taxpayers while also controlling spending in Washington?
Well, I come from a working class family in South Buffalo, New York. We are a community of middle class working families, and being a part of a family that has had to work several jobs just to put food on the table, keep the lights on. My mother's a nurse, worked 3 jobs. My father worked odd jobs, ran a delicatessen, Kennedy's Delicatessen in South Buffalo, all the penny candy free for the kids when they were coming up, so everybody knows them, but went on to take a civil service test. But in past that, it rose to the highest levels of city government as a city assessor. You know, we're a middle-class family. I've seen the struggles of middle-class families. We need to make sure there are jobs and opportunities for individuals in our community. The next generation, we need to provide for those that want to go to work here to be able to do so, to provide for their families and live the American dream right here in the Buffalo-Niagara region.
All right, Mr. Dickson, the same question to you. What initiatives do you support to help ease the burden on taxpayers while also controlling spending in Washington?
Well, I mean, we see an example of the career politician's answer, which is not an answer. You asked how to control inflation. Spending is the #1 cause of inflation in this country. It's overspending and too much debt on the part of the federal government, and it's too much debt on the part of the state government. The state government, under my opponent's leadership, has seen record increases. It's called by independent monitors unsustainable costs into the future, and sending someone who can't control the state budget to the national level is, to me, nonsensical. For myself, when I was elected to go into West Seneca, I promised that we would control spending and we would not increase taxes, and we did not increase taxes for 4 years.
Mr. Kennedy, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, look, everybody agrees that inflation is an issue, but you know what? Inflation has actually cooled in the last couple of years, and it's beginning to right the ship. What we need to do, regardless of what inflation is across this country, is make sure we're creating jobs and opportunities for Western New Yorkers. I grew up in this community. Unlike my opponent, who just came into our community, my family goes back here generations. The bottom line is, I was here during the depression of our community, where we were seeing jobs and opportunities flee along with my generation. Now we see them coming back. We need to make sure that we create jobs for the future.
All right, gentlemen, moving on now. Our next topic is housing. Recently, Zillow named Buffalo the hottest housing market in 2024, but high mortgage rates and rising home prices are plaguing an already historically low housing stock, making homeownership out of reach for many. Recently, President Biden called for a larger role to reduce those costs. What do you believe the Fed's role should be during what many are calling a crisis? And Mr. Dickson, we'll go to you first.
The problem of affordable housing is indeed serious, and to a great degree, that is caused by excessive regulation on the part of the state and a part of local municipalities. People need to know, and developers need to know, that they can invest in a community, can make a reasonable profit, and that's how you create housing. We have a lot of empty lots, a lot of empty housing in Buffalo. That seems to be it would be a prime area to encourage housing, and I certainly support the federal efforts for affordable housing, and it is indeed one of the most serious problems facing especially our inner cities.
Mr. Kennedy, the same question to you. What do you believe the federal government's role should be when it comes to getting some kind of a better handle on this housing crisis?
Well, we need to invest in communities like the Buffalo community and Niagara Falls and Western New York community, just like ours across the nation. We have to make sure that we're building. It's grow or die. And for too long, our community was moving in the wrong direction, which is what spurred me to get involved in government in the first place, because I believe in a better future. We need to make sure that we're investing in housing at every level. We have to make sure that those individuals that need affordable housing are able to get it, that we have access to housing at all levels, market rate, affordable, that we're building our community centers into the cities, that we're making sure the tenants are protected in their homes that are renting, and landlords are able to invest in their housing stock. We have to have a collaborative approach. Part of what we've done here in New York State is invested tens of millions of dollars. We're working with community leaders, nonprofit organizations, church organizations to continue to build housing for all communities across Western New York.
Gentlemen, we're going to move on to another hot button topic, certainly across the country these days, abortion. Mr. Kennedy, we begin with you for this question. You've championed enshrining a woman's right to choose in the New York State Constitution. If elected, what will you do to support your party's desire for more abortion rights at the national level?
Well, we need to codify a woman's right to choose into law at the federal level. I have done it here in New York State, and we need to do it at the federal level. What we are seeing right now is a most conservative Supreme Court in the history of the United States eroding a woman's right to make her own healthcare decisions about her own body. A woman's right to choose should be between herself, her family, and her doctor. And it shouldn't be up to people like my opponent and myself or anybody else. It's a private decision between a woman and those she loves. The bottom line is, because of a Supreme Court that was put in place by a former president that my opponent supports, they are eroding these rights that were in place for 50 years under Roe v. Wade. But we codified Roe v. Wade here into law in New York State. And what we're seeing is the erosion of a woman's right to choose across this country, including today. And it's an unfortunate reality. I'll protect a woman's right to choose. My opponent will not.
Mr. Dickson, we do plan on asking you a question on this topic, but first we would like to allow you to rebut, if you so choose, to what Mr. Kennedy is saying.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I am personally pro-life. My views on this have not changed, unlike my opponents. But this issue is, as he says, at the state level. It has gone to the states. The voters in each state will get to choose, and the voters are the bosses. I personally do not think it should be a federal issue. I will not vote for a federal law either way on the abortion issue.
Well, Mr. Dickson, in response to the Arizona Supreme Court's decision to enforce a Civil War-era abortion ban, Donald Trump did release a video saying the issue should be left to the states. As you just noted, you believe that it should be a state issue. But are you concerned that places such as Arizona are enforcing what many are calling an extreme measure?
The details in Arizona, it's up to the Arizonans to resolve. I believe the Republican Party in Arizona quickly has rushed to say that they do not support it. And as I said before, I think the voters should be able to vote in it. I believe Florida is going to have a referendum soon in November. Other states have already had them. And I believe that's the appropriate place. It should do it at the state level. Let the voters vote. They are the bosses. We are their public servants.
Mr. Kennedy, your opponent did invoke your name. Would you like to rebut?
Yeah, look, if you ban abortion in this country, people will die. Women will die. And women will do things that they have to do that are unhealthy and they shouldn't have to do. The right to choose should be codified into federal law. We need to be able to allow a woman to make her own health care decisions about her own body. We did it here in New York State. We need to do it at the federal level.
Gentlemen, we're going to move on to international affairs now. Iran's retaliatory barrage on Israel this month escalated tensions in a region already reeling from the October 7th attack by Hamas and the subsequent destruction of Gaza by the IDF. What should America's role in the Middle East be? Mr. Dickson, we begin with you.
America plays a critical role in the Middle East. Israel, as the only democracy in the region, deserves our full support. They were viciously attacked on October 6th, and they retaliated. Iran is a source of conflict, and they have to be controlled. I think we should have strength in the region, and I believe that I support Israel's right to defend itself. You know, look, there are Arabs in the Israeli Knesset. 20% of the country are citizens of are Arabs. Israel is not perfect. The United States isn't perfect. But compared to the other countries around it, it's the best country there.
Mr. Kennedy, this same question is to you. What do you believe America's role should be in the Middle East, given the latest escalations?
The United States has to play a pivotal role in creating a lasting peace in the Middle East. And Israel is our strongest democratic ally in the Middle East. And they were viciously attacked on October 7th. There were over 1,200 people that were murdered in the streets in broad daylight. There were over 200 hostages that were taken. Those hostages still need to be returned home. Israel has a right to defend itself, and the United States is playing a pivotal role in supporting our greatest ally. That being said, in creating a lasting peace, we also need to make sure that we're providing humanitarian aid to the innocent people in Gaza that are suffering through this terrible war. This war needs to come to an end as quickly as possible and create a lasting peace. The United States will play a pivotal role in making sure that that happens.
We're going to move on to current events, but stay in a very similar lane here, especially given what is happening this week. Protests on college campuses all across the country, they're causing disruptions. And just today, House Speaker Mike Johnson called for the resignation of Colombia's president. So what should the federal government's role be here? And do you believe another college president's ouster is necessary? Mr. Kennedy, this question goes to you.
Look, I think we are at a real crossroads here in our country and in the global community. It is a scary world today, and unlike ever before, we are seeing an outbreak of violence across the Middle East, at least in my lifetime. And what we're seeing is Hamas, a terrorist organization that attacked Israel on October 7th, Hezbollah attacking Israel from the north, Iran attacking Israel. These aren't just enemies of Israel. These are enemies of America. And so what we need to do is we need to do everything we can to negotiate a lasting peace in the Middle East. It is absolutely imperative that the United States stakes out our claim and plays that role as peacemaker, as we've done in other countries. And where we have involved ourselves, we have created peace and lasting peace across the globe.
Mr. Kennedy, a follow-up. I'm talking specifically about the protests that are ongoing on college campuses. So let me be more specific. Should Jewish students at Columbia feel afraid about going to class?
No one should feel afraid about going to class anywhere. My son is a freshman student in college today, and to think that he or anyone in his class would ever feel afraid to go to school, it's absolutely mind-boggling. We need to make sure that our students feel safe, that our campuses are safe, but at the same time, people have a right to protest, and we want to hear from the protesters. We want to make sure that they have their right to free speech protected at the same time. This is America, and everybody deserves a right to be heard.
Mr. Dickson, to you, the same question when it comes to these college protests that have erupted across the country.
Many of these protests that I've seen border on hate crimes. These are not peaceful demonstrations. Yes, if you have a peaceful demonstration and you want to express your opinion, that is fine. But when you start threatening other students, when you start calling for the destruction of America, when you start saying death to America, when you start supporting terrorist organizations like Hamas, that has gone beyond the pale. And to the extent that these students are foreign students, if they participate in that kind of activity, I think they should be deported. And if students who are not foreign, the colleges should seriously consider suspending and or expelling them.
Mr. Dickson, do you join Mike Johnson in believing that the Columbia president should be ousted?
That's for them to say. I didn't see the interview, and you know, she is in a very tough position, and I will leave it at that.
All right, continuing with the topic of international affairs, the United States has helped Ukraine throughout its war with Russia. Today, President Biden signed into law a $95 billion foreign aid package, with the majority of those funds going to Ukraine. Mr. Dickson, some members of the Republican Party fought against this bill, even threatening to oust House Speaker Mike Johnson if he allowed a vote to send more assistance. If elected, where will you stand in this battle, and how will you fight to make your position heard on Capitol Hill?
So in my 27 years in the FBI, I spent 5 years at the American Embassy in Moscow. I know the Russian government. I know how their police services work, how their intelligence services work. During 3 of those years, Putin was in power. Putin is a vicious, brutal dictator. There should be no doubt of that. He assassinates his opponents at home. He assassinates his opponents abroad. If he is not stopped now, he will keep on going. I support equipment for Ukraine to defend itself, and I'm completely on their side on this issue.
Mr. Dickson, do you support the $61 billion that the president signed into law today with this spending plan?
Yes, I do, and I would have voted for it had I been in Congress.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kennedy, what is your response to those who say Congress is essentially writing blank checks for Ukraine?
Well, because of the dysfunction and chaos that the Republican majority is creating in Congress, it was far too long that Ukraine had to wait for the United States to send that relief. But thankfully, they acted. And they acted with the Democrats that joined in a bipartisan fashion to get that over the finish line, amid, as you had already mentioned, Marley, dissent from the extreme right Republicans that are now calling for that leader of Congress ouster. The bottom line is we have to support Ukraine. Less than a couple of weeks ago, I went to the funeral for Yuri Hurry-Ryshin, an incredible Buffalo booster, an amazing Ukrainian leader, Ukrainian-American leader, and a wonderful man in our community. It's the Ukrainian community that we stand with in this moment as they fight back against that dictator, Vladimir Putin, and Russia, the invasion against democracy. And while I'll end there.
Mr. Kennedy, I'll ask a follow-up there. Is another $61 million or another $61 billion, is that enough? At what point do Democrats and Republicans come together on how much is too much? What is that agreement if you're elected?
We have to back democracy on a global scale, and it's being threatened everywhere. It's being threatened in Ukraine. It's being threatened in Israel. It's being threatened in Taiwan. The humanitarian aid that was a part of this package that will go to help the people in Gaza. This package was a strong, comprehensive package. I'm very pleased that the president signed this into law, and I'm pleased that Congress finally backed it.
All right, Mr. Kennedy, thank you. Our next topic is your predecessor, Brian Higgins. Mr. Kennedy, will begin with you. If elected, you fill a seat vacated by a man who served in that position for nearly 2 decades. In that time, Higgins left a mark on Buffalo's waterfront. He revitalized Western New York's infrastructure and worked to make air travel safer in the wake of Flight 3407. With specific examples, how will you continue that success in this district?
Well, first of all, I think our community owes an incredible debt of gratitude to Congressman Higgins for 19 plus years of leadership in Congress. He and I are very close friends, but also he is a mentor to me. I grew up in South Buffalo as an occupational therapist, went to Duval University and worked in healthcare, but also volunteered, and he was one of the first campaigns I ever volunteered in and then interned in his office. I suppose the rest is history. The bottom line is he helped transform our community for the better in many ways that you've mentioned, and in many other ways. To carry on his legacy and to carry on the momentum that's been created, bringing jobs and economic investment to our community, making sure that we're putting funding into Roswell Park Cancer Center for continued research and development and job creation, continuing the revitalization of our waterfront, all the way from the southern tier all the way to Niagara Falls. We have to continue to invest and grow our economy, grow jobs, and keep up the momentum.
Mr. Kennedy, a follow-up, of course, as someone who was in office for nearly 2 decades, Mr. Higgins had a lot of political power with the Ways and Means Committee, meaning that he was able to allocate a lot of funding to this Western New York area. How, as a newcomer to Congress, will you continue that?
Well, certainly Congressman Higgins' shoes are very big to fill, and I'm going to go down to Congress and I'm going to work my tail off to make sure that I'm doing everything in my power to deliver for Western New York, that I bring our passion for the community, that I'm a workhorse that people know, that is a fighter for the needs of our community, that's one of us, that just brings the values that we all cherish as Buffalonians and Western New Yorkers, work in any way that I can to build relationships and deliver with those that I'm serving with in Congress.
Mr. Dickson, to you now with specific examples. How would you continue your predecessor's success in this district?
Well, I'd like to point out that my opponent has had, 14 years to do that. And I don't think there's anybody in the state who thinks that the state is doing better in the last 14 years. We've been losing population. We're losing businesses. The rules on our businesses are getting worse. I talk to businesses about how onerous it is to get to open a business. And the facts are, and I, as a retired law enforcement, I like evidence. The facts of the last 14 years are that
Mr. Dickson, I'm going to stop you right there. We're
Sure.
speaking about specific examples for this district that you would continue Mr. Higgins' success.
We need to worry about the things that are really an issue with this community: crime, the migration, and the economy. But the way that government can pick, when government tries to pick winners and losers, they usually fail. We just have to look at the Buffalo billions. That is wasted money. We need to lower taxes. We need to decrease regulations so that bright entrepreneurs will want to start a business without government help.
Mr. Kennedy, we are out of time, so we apologize. You will not have the chance to rebut, but you will, of course, have your closing statement as well. And it wraps up our questioning at this moment. Each candidate provides their closing statements, and since Mr. Dickson went first tonight, that means Mr. Kennedy gets the final word. So, Mr. Dickson, you have 30 seconds for your closing statement.
Thank you. In this election, Western New York has a choice like it hasn't had in a long time. You can send someone who promises to perpetuate the dysfunction in Congress like my opponent does in his ads. Or you can send someone who will work, who has experience with working with everybody regardless of where they live, how much they make, or what party they're in. Thank you.
Mr. Kennedy, you have 30 seconds, sir.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, thank you for hosting us here today. Thank you to my opponent for this spirited conversation. And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to this important discussion about the future of our community. And yes, when I went to the Senate 14 years ago, New York State was the most dysfunctional state government in the entire nation. We have changed that. We have now made New York State government a beacon of hope and light for the rest of the nation to follow suit. And the bottom line is, now that Washington is broken and chaotic and dysfunctional as it is, we're going to go down and we're going to change Washington.
Gentlemen, that marks the end of News 4's special election debate. We thank our candidates for taking part, and of course, we thank you at home for watching.
For our viewers at home, you'll be able to watch this debate in its entirety on our website, WIVB.com. A reminder, Election Day for the special election is April 30th. Thank you so much for joining us for this special edition of News 4. Have a great night.
Great night.